Hi, good evening, everyone. We will start our webinar session in 2 more minutes to wait for all the participants to join in. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Australia's General Skill Migration Program. Hope everyone is well settled and had your dinner. If you have been keeping up with Australia's migration news, you may be aware already that the Australian government currently prioritizes the general skill migration as their topmost priority in their migration program. Our office has been receiving invitations to submit visa regularly, almost on a weekly basis. So today we wanted to share with you what does it take for you to qualify for a general skill migration, and we are excited to share with you that the momentum now is at its best for you to pursue this migration pathway to obtain your residency in Australia. So tonight's session will be presented by two expert speakers who will be sharing their knowledge and expertise on the topic. Firstly, we have Desmond, a licensed migration advisor and the founder of GMS. He has been in the migration industry for 20 years and has extensive experience in helping people migrate to Australia through various visa categories. Desmond has helped thousands of individuals and families achieve their dream of living in Australia, and we are excited to learn from his insights and experiences. Joining Desmond is Audrey, who has 13 years of experience in end-to-end skill migration. She has worked with different clients from various industries and helped teams navigate the complexities of the skill migration process for over 5,000 cases. Audrey has a deep understanding of the requirements, processes, and challenges that comes with skill migration to Australia. So you will certainly be having the best advice suitable for your profile. James is not joining us today, but a quick intro on James. He is a licensed migration advisor with 19 years of experience and also a certified migration trainer who provides CPT classes to all other migration agents. Also, I would like to importantly highlight to you that in global migration solutions, consultations are strictly done only by Desmond, James, or Audrey, only as our consultations are purely advisory in nature, and you can be rest assured you would be obtain the best advice for you. We do not have nor operate with a frontline sales team to advise you, as we believe migration advisory needs in-depth discussion and consultation. Okay, I will pass now over to Mr. Desmond.
Hi, Ashley, thank you. And everyone, good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. And my name is Desmond from Global Migration Solutions. Of course, we always excited to share about the updates and also the information on how you can obtain your PR in Australia through various programs. And this evening, we will be focusing on the General Skill Migration Program. Just before we start, I would just want to share a little bit about us. Global Migration Solutions started the business and to provide the migration advisory back in 2004. The company was started by myself as one of the business owner, and over the last 19 years, we have been focusing on providing a genuine migration advice to our clients. And over the last few years, we have been helping more than 12,000 clients successfully obtaining their residency in various countries, and majority of them went through Australia. Our records and our success has also landed us with several awards. And one of the important awards is, being nominated as one of the top 25 global migration agency CEO. And of course, we started off as one of the top 100 back in 2018. Then gradually we moved up to be one of the top 50. And with the client support, as well as the trust, having us to assist them. And again, our success record has pushed us to become one of the top 25 globally in 2021 and last year, 2022. And today, we have our presence in various countries, in Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and as well as Hong Kong. And we are based in this country to support clients from all this region. And our focus now, other than Australia, we do also provide advisory on New Zealand, United States, as well as Portugal. Back to Australia, we cover every single types of the programs, whether it is the business migration programs or investment migration programs and skill migration programs. Again, as what Ashley was rightly said, the trend is now back to the skill migration programs again, and it is really a good opportunity for you to explore if you have at all thought about obtaining the PR in Australia. This is the best opportunity. For many years, the program has been very challenging, but now extra quota was given. The focus is back to the skill migrations programs. Yes, it is the best times now. So we do also provide the advisory on family migration. If you already have someone in your family, a PR or citizen in Australia, and if you're exploring a parent's visa, for example, spouse visa, or you need to sponsor your children's under the child visa, we are helping you as well. And residence return visa, of course, it is for those PR holder who has not yet made the move to Australia and needed to maintain their PR through the substantial ties. We are good in handling that, as well as the global talents visa as well. So under the rest of the three jurisdiction, we are pretty much focusing on the business and the investment category. Now, one of the extra highlights here that I would like to mention is the Portugal Golden Visa and the D7 visa. You notice that this programs is very interesting if you have heard about it, and you might be aware that a lot of people has embarked on this Portugal Golden Visa programs as an entry point to gain the EU citizenship. And of course, if you want to find out more, please feel free to contact us and we will be more than happy to share with you that information. Okay, now let's talk about the Australia programs. There are various pathways. Before that, myself and James, both are licensed advisor, and we are registered under the Australia immigration to provide the immigration advice. And of course, you are bounded by the code of conduct to make sure that the advice that's given to you are always up to date and correct. And why would Australia PR why would Australia always stand up as one of the #1 choice among the migrants globally? It is because the value of the permanent residence does provide you a lot of the opportunity. In my opinion, I think Australia do have the advantage of the geographical location. It is close enough to the Asia Gateway, but importantly, the PR itself does provide you a lot of the benefits. So, as an example, if you are a PR holder, you do obtain or you do access to the Medicare in Australia. Generally, if you are seeing a doctor or your family member is seeing a doctor, you get full subsidies, yeah, from from the medication and the consultation. And that gives you, of course, as a PR, that gives you the full rights to be able to live and work and study in Australia indefinitely. And education benefits is one of the important aspects. You do get education benefits, free education for primary school and secondary school. And for tertiary education, you're basically paying 30% of the school fee as compared to international students. But of course, there's a lot more welfare that comes under the Centrelink. And it does also give you an options to take up an Australian citizenship if you wish to, yeah, and many more options. And so these are a good summary of the benefits as an Australia PR. And let's have a look at the migration outlook. And this is important for me to highlight this to you. And just to walk you through a few numbers here. What you are seeing here is the skill migration planning level, or often the time we call it quota, for these programs here 2022 to 2023. And you will notice that the number of the planning level increased from almost 79,000 to 142,000. So this is double up, yeah. And majority of the numbers stays with the employer-sponsored, skill independent, regional sponsor, and states and territory nomination. The skill independent, regional, state nomination, state territory nominated, these are all the visa class that we are going to be sharing with you shortly. And the number has gone up tremendously for two reasons. Number one, post-COVID, post-pandemic, there's a serious labor shortage in Australia. At this moment, we are talking about a shortage of 500,000 skilled workers. And Australian governments, for that reasons, open up, the quota, or increase the quota, to encourage more migrants to come over to Australia to fill up the needs. Number two, the Labour Party. So last year, the Labour governments has taken over the administration, and Labour governments has always been in favor to bring in as much or as many skilled migrants as possible. And that is what we are looking at this point of time. And next, so just to look into the common pathway for you to explore or to obtain the PR, beside the general skill migration, you do also have the Global Talent Independent. Just a quick introduction about the Global Talent Independent. This is mainly the programs cater for those experts in the specific industry. For example, if you're engineers, you're globally recognized, you receive international awards, you have introduced certain new engineering method or new engineering design, and which landed you with an awards, and you're being seen as the expert in your field. And this is what the Global Talents Independence for. Employer sponsored, if you're being offered a job in Australia, and you will be able to explore or potentially explore the employer sponsored visa. This might not be easy to most of the people because the migration law in Australia is meant to give the priority of favoring the PR and citizen. So for a company to offer a sponsorship to a foreign workers or to an expat, the company have to go through a stringent process to be qualified as an eligible sponsor, and have to go through the nomination process before they can even sponsor you. Then we have the family sponsored, and this covers parents visa, spouse visa, and the child visa. Then we do also have the business innovation and investor visa. And we are going to be seeing something very interesting, or going to be getting some new updates after this Thursday, I believe, on the business innovation and investor visa. This is a sensitive period of times where these programs, are undergoing some review, for changes. And I do believe that the changes is meant, to increase the requirements. Yeah. So these are the few pillars and the common pathway for someone or yourself to obtain your PR in Australia. And again, today, we would like to stay focused with the general skill migration program and to introduce you with some, quality details and quality information so that you do get some good idea at the end of the session. Yeah. So this is what I would like to share with you. And I would like Audrey to go through some of the details about the general skill migration for you. Audrey, over to you, please.
All right. Thanks, Desmond. Thanks for the introduction, a detailed one. Hi, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. I think it's really awesome to see almost a full turnout on this webinar. It's very impressive. I think the timing is right. The day is right. So today, the focus is going to be on general skill migration. So first, I wanted to walk you through the basic requirements for a skill migration. Okay, visa. Number one is the age. So skill migration is only applicable to those below age of 45. Okay, whether this is going to be revised or not, we will know in a few days' time after the migration review. But as of now, it's for those who are below 45. You will also need to meet a minimum point test of 65 points. So this point test is derived by various factors such as age, your qualification, the amount of work experience you have, your English level, whether you've studied in Australia, or whether you're single. So even if you're single, you actually get 10 points. So it's very interesting how the current point system is designed. So 65 is the basic points, but what is important for you all to note is that it doesn't mean that every profile that is 65 will be invited. So that is where we really need to assess you and advise you what is actually suitable for you to proceed or not. Number three, most importantly, you need to have an occupation on the Australian skill occupation list. So Australia has a skill occupation list that has more than 500 occupations, okay? And it is divided into 3 different categories, such as long-term lists, short-term lists, and regional occupation lists. Again, we would need to see which list you fall into, and that will also determine the type of visa that you're going to get. Number 4, the most interesting, English requirement. Okay, so there is a basic level of English that needs to be met, which is regarded as competent. And if you're familiar with the IELTS English test, this is at band 6. Or the PTE English test, you need to get 50 in each component. So this is the basic to qualify for skill migration. And of course, the more points you get on the English test, the more points you get on the immigration point test as well. Okay. And last but not least, you must be invited to submit a visa. So the invitations can come from various ways. It's either automatically done through the system, through a state, or through a relative. So these are the main 5 basic criteria to qualify for a general skill migration. Now, let's move on to the type of visa classes that we have under general skill migration. So basically, there are 3 main visa classes under general skill migration. The first one is skilled independent subclass 189. Okay, so this visa is a visa that grants you a direct PR upon grant. So meaning if your visa is approved today you become a full PR in Australia. Okay, it's a 5 years visa that allows you to live and work anywhere in Australia. And generally in Australia, the PR works this way. The PR is 5 years, okay, whether it's a parent visa, spouse visa, employer-sponsored PR. Every PR in Australia is for 5 years. And the way to maintain your PR is basically just by fulfilling 2 years of residency in Australia. And the 2 years of residency is actually cumulative. So you do not need to stay one go. It's cumulative stay. So this visa is only for occupations that are listed on MLT SSL, which is the medium long-term strategic skill list. So this is where we have the engineers, the doctors, the nurses, certain IT occupations, and also trades workers such as chef, plumber, tiler, Okay, so mainly focus on professionals and highly skilled. Okay, what is interesting is in 2018, in 2019, and let's not even talk about 2020, 2021 during the pandemic, you need to have really high points to get selected under this visa, which is used to be 90, 95 points. But what's really interesting and very encouraging to see is we have had selections as low as 65 points for this visa, which is actually fantastic, because if you get selected at 65 points for this visa, you are getting a full direct PR in Australia, which is very, very precious. Okay, so why is this possible? Again, going back to what Desmond said, it's because of the huge quota allocations that the Australian government is providing right now. Okay, so really a good time. Nice to see 189 back in picture again. Next, this is skill nominated 190. Okay, as the word says nominated, you need to receive a nomination. So this is a nomination from a state, but this visa also gets you a direct PR, just like the 189. So the 189 and the 190, basically these two visas are identical in the value that they have. Okay, because it's a full PR, you can technically live anywhere in Australia. Okay, however, because you are actually getting a nomination from the state, you do have a moral commitment to stay in the nominating state for the first 2 years. Okay, and we highly encourage you to fulfill that commitment that you do to the state. And for this, the occupation can be on short-term lists or long-term lists. Short-term list is actually the longest list on the entire Australian skill occupation list. So this is where you have a lot of other occupations such as marketing, public relations, advertising, finance manager, financial investment advisors, and the list just goes on. Graphic designers, interior decorators. You'll be very, very surprised if you see the 500 occupations that Australia has. Okay, so do not shy away thinking that you may not qualify. Okay, because of your occupation, speak to us. And through this visa, you get 5 points awarded towards your point test. Okay, so when you get a state nomination, there's 5 points given to you. And how this works is basically we need to look at, so each state comes up with their own occupation in demand list, and we need to review it very regularly all the time to see, do you qualify for that particular state or not? And if you do, we will need to submit an expression of interest. And once the state nominates you, you submit your visa. In the end of the day, again, it's a PR. Okay, so 189, 190 is PR. Now let's look at subclass 491. So it's called Skill Regional Nominated 491. Just like the 190, this also requires a state nomination. Okay, however, you'll get a temporary residence first. But this temporary residence is a temporary residency that can be converted into a permanent residence after you have fulfilled certain conditions. So how do you convert? Okay, is one thing, but what does this visa allow you to do is another thing. Number one, this is a 5 years visa that only allows you to live, work, or study in a regional area of Australia. So regional areas in Australia are basically defined as areas of growth, okay, that are supposed to be, they need to grow. So this is no Sydney, no Brisbane, no Melbourne naturally, okay, because these 3 cities are already highly populated. So the government has designed this program in a way to actually encourage migrants to come and stay in these other areas and make it grow, okay? Next, what must you do? The conversion to PR is actually, if you ask me, it's very simple. All that you would need to do is you need to be employed to earn an income, a taxable income of minimum 53,900 each year, okay? And this employment doesn't have to be you working with the employer, it can also be self-employed. So the way of gauging is purely by seeing each year on your tax, when your tax ends, right? You need to have 3 years of tax return with a minimum income of 53,900 per year. As long as you're able to show 3 years of tax returns with this income, and that you have not violated conditions of staying or working in Melbourne, you will be getting the conversion to the PR under a visa called 191. Okay, and it's very, very interesting because you get 15 points awarded through this visa. Okay, so the government is helping the migrants to qualify for this by giving additional points, and in return, they will need you to go to the regional areas. The same 491 works two ways. One is with the state, one is with the relative. Okay, the family sponsor, however, it's a very low priority visa at this point of time. When I say low priority, is there are very less quotas being given to this visa subclass, but it's still a subclass that we will assess you, okay, and we will see if you have a better option, we'll move you on to the right one. So I want to stress about this 491 visa because I've done a lot of consultations with clients. And when I speak about 491, everyone is like, oh no, I don't want a TR, I want a PR. Okay, of course, first choice, PR would be great. But at the same time, it's very important to know that 491 is equally great. Okay, why? Because number one, you qualify with 50 points. And it's actually more options of regional area. The 491 previously was known as 489. And during that time, you cannot stay in Perth. You cannot stay in Gold Coast. You cannot stay in Newcastle, Central Coast, Wollongong. All these areas were not allowed. So when the government implemented 491, they opened up the areas. Very straightforward. Just no Sydney, no Brisbane, no Melbourne for the first 3 years. Okay? And what's interesting is because you are a taxpayer, the government is also very fair in providing you with Medicare entitlement. So just as any other PR or citizen, you would qualify for Medicare, okay? And there's also priority processing for this. And most importantly, the education, okay? If you have any school-going children, they still would get free primary and secondary school education under 491. You get full work rights, and most importantly, route to permanent residency, okay? So do not underestimate this visa, okay? I always tell my clients that because sometimes they think that even going on a work visa, you must remember that even when you go on a work visa, subclass 482, there is no necessarily a direct conversion into PR, but this actually has a direct conversion, okay? So that is about the visas. Now let's move on to the overview of the skill migration process. Okay, so this basically sums up the full skill migration process. Number one, we spoke about you having a nominated occupation on the Australian occupation list. How do we confirm that? You first would need to undertake a skills assessment. So for every occupation, there are different authorities, okay? So for example, if you're an engineer, your assessment is done through Engineers Australia. If you're IT, we do it through Australian Computer Society. Most of the occupations like marketing, management consultant, advertising, PR is done through VETassess, okay? Accountants, Chartered Accountants, Australia, New Zealand. So every occupation it's already, they have their designated authority. So we will basically match you to the occupation list and submit your skills assessment for you to get a confirmation that this is your nominated occupation for migration. Then, of course, the English test as well. So once you have completed the skills assessment and the English test, only with these completed items, you can then move on to the next, which is the expression of interest. So now, where do we submit your expression of interest for? This would depend on your occupation. This would depend on your chances, but let us decide that for you. We'll walk you through very carefully what are the best options for you. So there are so many cases that sometimes we even submit all 3 visa classes for the expression of interest, okay? So because we want to see, we just basically want to expand the client's chances, okay? So these are the things we can do to see which invitation comes first. So the invitation can either come automatically under 189 or through state nomination or through a relative sponsorship. How long does it take for you to obtain an invitation? Generally, this is a timeline that we cannot confirm because it purely depends on how fast a state selects you. But what I can certainly tell you is the movement here is what's very healthy, very, very healthy. As Ashley was talking to y'all earlier, she said that we're getting invitations almost on a weekly basis, and that's true, okay? So the moment the client gets an invitation, that's when you can actually proceed to submit a visa. So here you submit a visa application, which must be done within 60 days after the invitation. Then you're in a queue waiting for your visa application to be processed. And once you get a case officer, you would need to complete medical and character checks. So character checks is police checks, okay? In terms of medical test, it's a very straightforward medical test. And as long as there's no critical illness or anything like that, there should be no concern in getting this through. So once all this have been completed, you get your visa approved. So it's basically a four large stages of process, but it's a very tedious process and needs to be done very, very carefully. And this is where exactly we will come in to do everything for you until you get your visa approved. And the general timeline, it actually can vary between, I think approximately, it can be as fast as maybe about 8 to 9 months to about at least 2 years. Okay, it really depends on your occupation and the type of visa classes. Here, I'm just sharing with you the invitation trends that we have personally seen in our office. And if you look at this, it's actually very, very encouraging. So as I mentioned to you all earlier, 65 points works for 189, okay? And we had so many engineers selected at 65 points, even internal auditor, external auditors at 65 points for the subclass 189. And we have 190, as you can see, 190. So what's really nice to see is 189, 190 gets you a direct PR. And graphic designer was selected at 65 points in NSW. Okay, again, very encouraging. Copywriter, public relations, advertising specialist. IT is generally competitive. So whenever I have a client who has an IT profile, I tend to be a little bit more careful in pumping up their points, okay? But look at this. It's very interesting to see that ICT system test engineer was actually invited at 65 points by South Australia. Again, these are things that I have not seen easily in the past 6-7 years. So why is this happening? It's just a good time, a lot of quotas, things are just working well for applicants. So that's how this is some of the figures that I have. But from this, what you're able to conclude is invitations are healthy. So if you fall into this category, or you have any other occupations that you are at, don't decide for yourself. Feel free to just send us the resume. We will assess you and then tell you if it's a go or no go. Okay, this is just what we do basically whenever the clients have got their visas approved, we hold a seminar. So Desmond usually is very, very happy to host a briefing ceremony, okay, a briefing about settlement in Australia on what you need to do next once you've gotten your visa approved. So we hope to see your faces soon here, okay? Okay, so that's pretty much of what I need to share with you today. We are open for questions, and Ashley, over to you. Ashley, you're muted.
Unmute. Yeah, sorry for that. Okay, so thank you both, Desmond and Audrey, for your insights that I'm sure provided a very good reference to the audience. And now we can begin the Q&A sessions, and feel free to jot in your question that you have. Okay, now we have a question here for Audrey.
Yes.
Yes, so the first question is, what is the best advice on attempting the English test for migration?
Okay, very, very easily answered. I would say PTE. Okay, so I would definitely say it's PTE English test. Many people have not heard about the PTE English test because the IELTS test, or rather IELTS, done by the British Council, has been the pioneers on English testing systems. Okay, so a lot of people still know IELTS, but PTE was actually accepted by